Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us. This week we show some respect to the one, the only Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, as she was portrayed brilliantly by Jennifer Hudson, who was handpicked for the role of Aretha Franklin, for the role by Aretha Franklin herself. This week we review Respect. The movie gives us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into Miss Franklin's early life and career. Tammy, did the movie earn your RESPCT?
Yes, it was good. The acting was phenomenal. Like, I was surprised about some of the characters on how some of the actors are on how well they did, but overall I enjoyed the movie. Like, yeah, definitely enjoyed the movie. What did you think of it?
I agree with you on the acting. The acting was phenomenal. I think Miss Franklin. Look at me. I'm in the habit of calling her that now. I think Miss Franklin. I think she did a great job of handpicking the role with Jennifer Hudson, and I loved everything about that. We can get into that more of that in a minute. The movie was better than I thought it was, than I thought it would be in a lot of ways. Biopics are usually hit or miss, and some of the just I hate that we only got glimpses, and a lot of it was kind of scattered shot. Like it wasn't. I wish it was more focused and more concentrated on the areas of her life that it focused on, if that makes any sense. So I thought it was a little scattershot in that, but overall, I did enjoy it. I did. Did you realize that Ted White was Marlon Wayans?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that till I was like, he looks so familiar. And then,
Really?
yeah, it took me a moment. And then I was like, he looks so familiar. And I'm like, oh shit, that. And I'm like, nah, it's not. But then at the end, when I was looking at the credits, I'm like, it was Marlon Wayans. He did a
Yeah,
great,
like the
he did a
acting,
great
he
job.
surprised me more than any. Like, Jennifer Hudson did her thing with the acting. I think I agree with you. She was a phenomenal pick to play Aretha Franklin. Not to take away from anyone else that's played Aretha Franklin, but being handpicked by Aretha and doing such a phenomenal job in the movie. But Marlon Wayans surprised me because he's a comedic actor. So to see him like come in and play that role and do so well playing that role, I was just like, wow, like open my eyes to okay, all right, Marlon. All right,
Yeah.
I'll give you a shot. I'll give you a
And
shot.
And I want to say that this is maybe his second, or he's done just like a handful of dramatic roles, and most of them have been small, like small. It's not where he's actually had like, I guess, a supporting role in this. I'm thinking of it in terms of how they would go for nominations or awards or anything like that. So I would say he would this would definitely be a supporting role, but he did surprise me too, because Forrest Whitaker is just fucking Forrest Whitaker. Like, come on now, um, you know. But um, so yeah. Was there anything else that you were surprised about as far as the acting or the characters or the story itself?
No, just Jennifer Hudson doing a phenomenal job showing people that she can really act and she wasn't just given this role because she can sing, because she can. And then Marlon Wayans. I think those two were the best surprises and um the two characters and actors that made me really enjoy this movie. Like, I focused on this movie just because of how amazing they did.
Yeah. And she did a phenomenal job. Like, she embodied Aretha Franklin. Like, first of all, when I heard it, I'm like, okay, but they look nothing alike. And then it was like, but Aretha handpicked her, and it's like, okay. But you forget that they really don't physically resemble, but just the voice, the way she worked on her voice and the affectations of her voice, and she took on Aretha's voice and her characteristics and her person. Like, she became Aretha Franklin, and so you did not see her as Jennifer Hudson. At least I didn't see her as Jennifer Hudson portraying Aretha Franklin. I saw like Aretha Franklin, and then when she sung, even though Aretha has a one of a kind voice, and I love the fact that she didn't necessarily try to mimic that, because you couldn't, but she took the songs were still classic and they still sounded like Aretha, but she kind of took them and made them her own, if that makes sense, where it wasn't like some cheap karaoke cover. Am I making sense there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really appreciated that. And having said that, I learned a lot of things that maybe I had forgotten. Aretha Franklin, the highlight of her career, was way before my time, but just I remember her music in the house, growing up a little bit, and then just as I kind of discovered music on my own and my own identity, and went back to when I would hear people talk about the greats, I kind of made it my mission to go back and see, oh, okay, so I did fall in love with Sam Cooke on my own, and Otis Redding, and Aretha Franklin is one of those that I just kind of fell in love with on my own. And so in doing that, like hearing some of the songs, I was like, oh yes. But I forgot, like, I knew that they said her relationship with her dad was so fucking complicated. And I could never remember, like, I had always kind of understood that he didn't want her to sing secular music, or it was just like, I don't know. I was still kind of confused about that. Maybe he just wanted full control over her career. I'm not sure.
I
But
think
what
it's
you,
more on full control based on the movie. Wanting full control, because when you remember when her mom said, he doesn't own your voice, nobody does, right?
mm-hmm,
And I think that's what it was, on the fact of, for the beginning of her career, she allowed her father to own her voice, to say what she can sing, when she can sing, how she can sing it. It was all him, on full control. So yeah, definitely controlling on her career, just making sure that he kept his stamp on it, so that they weren't just talking about Aretha Franklin, but they were also talking about him.
yeah, like, uh, I'm just gonna say it. May he rest. The Reverend C.L. Franklin was a motherfucker. He was a gangster.
I looked at it as if he was a typical pastor to me. No, like, I mean, I grew up in the church. I grew up around church folk, and I grew up around Pentecostal church folk. Um, so that's close to that Baptist church, and yeah, I was not surprised. Like, when you see the Saturday parties that he had every week, I was just like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, because it's like, and it's hard to keep them straight because I have seen both. I saw the Cynthia Erivo
Genius.
portrayal. Yeah, Genius, and she did a great job in the miniseries. And because it was a miniseries on TV, it went into, it gave a little bit more detail into different aspects of her life, but it was still scattershot too, as far as the timelines and how they told the story. So that's one thing that I didn't like about either. But forgive me if I confused the two, but I think it was in the movie where Dinah Washington. Yeah, it was in the movie where Dinah Washington said, "Who was it that started on the church circuit? Sam Cooke, Ray Charles,
Ray
or
Charles.
Ray Charles?" Where she said Ray Charles. She said the church folk ain't much better. Ray Charles said the best sex he ever had was on that church circuit. So,
Yep.
that didn't surprise me either. And it's like, okay, and I guess that's where, forgive me, where some of the hypocrisy comes in, on it. And and I think one thing that, like, Aretha Franklin was just so mature for her age and so wise beyond her years, because when she got her first, like, she released at least 10 albums, 9 albums, before she had her first hit with, what was it, Natural Woman? Was it Natural Woman, or
Oh, I don't know.
no, it wasn't Natural Woman. It was the other one. Never Loved a Man. And I love that song. Um, but And so, but when she hit it big with that, she was 25 years old and she'd already had a 13-year-old because she got pregnant and had her first kid when she was 12. And
Yeah.
to this day, like no one still knows, or she never said publicly. I don't think she, and I read that she never really even told her family who that child's father was. Um, so it was just like, and so just when you're looking at it, it's hard to remember that, wow, she was only 25 at the time. And so it was just like, oh, okay. Um, but yeah. Um, so her dad was a trip, and their relationship was hella complicated. um and I also, I knew she was an activist, but I forgot just like how deep, I didn't realize how deep she was into the movement, and that she grew up with all those people coming to her house, like
Yeah, she knew a lot of famous people.
yeah, like Martin Luther King Jr. Her dad was part of the civil rights movement with him. She was part of the civil rights movement. I knew that she sang at his funeral, but I didn't realize that the connection was so deep, you know. Um, Dinah Washington, Sam Cooke, all of those people, So that was like, she had it in her genes. Like it was amazing. What did you think?
Uh,
Just her childhood. Let's start there.
it was fucked up. It was very fucked up. I will disagree with you. I don't think she was mature beyond her age. I think that she was stunted in a way based on just the movie. I did not know her background before I watched the movie. I knew her music, but I did not know her background. I'm a fan of her music, but I guess I wouldn't say that I'm a full fan of Aretha Franklin. Um, so yeah, like she was very like she let other people control her, and it was to make sure everybody else was good. And I guess that's from the trauma of when she was younger, and that whole thing. I mean, blocking out what went on between her dad and her mom, that she didn't even remember why her mom ultimately left, and who her father was with her mom. So I don't think that was maturity. Like she did have all those albums come out by the time she was 25, and all of those albums were controlled by her father. That's the reason why she had no hits, because she wasn't singing something for herself. She was singing for her father, she was singing for the producer, but she wasn't singing for herself. It wasn't until she started singing more for herself that she started to see hits. When she started to take control of her career, is when she started to see hits and people started to know who she was. Besides just being like, the church girl or her father's daughter, with the voice. So other than that, like, she had a fucked up childhood. Like, I mean, for you to have a kid at 12 and then your people tell you that's the devil in you and you really believe it, and that was what you spread the whole time, that you had a demon in you, and but I talked to my friend about that, and she was just like, oh, I mean, that's how the black community sometimes is. Like, we ignore those kind of things because we don't want to acknowledge some of the evilness within our own community. We just gonna do that suffer through kind of thing. So
Yeah, um and I get it. And let me clarify. When I say mature, I think professionally, that's where I will say mature, like just to be 25. But personally, yeah, you could see where she was stunted, where she relied on a lot of people, and a lot of different things to help her deal with the trauma of her childhood. First of all, being dragged out on the road as a child, being raped by, uh, who knows when it actually started, but having a child when you're 12, and being a child yourself, um, and for your trauma, you're being told all this time that that's your demons. Like you say, we all have the demons, but to just be to control, and when James Cleveland finally tells her that's not a demon, that's just your trauma, and you need to deal with it. Um, So yeah, I do understand that. And it kind of alluded to certain things, the movie, about how she dealt with that, about her alcoholism and her substance abuse. And then I think, how once she became clean and sober from that, how then food kind of became that next crutch, or that thing that she relied on. And you know um and I guess that's what I meant when I said scattershot. Although we are so much more than our trauma, and Aretha Franklin is so much more than her trauma. I don't know that necessarily glossing over a lot of it, um, if it helped. And I guess that's why I'm saying the movie would have been better served to me if it would have just taken a particular point in her life and focused on that, the whole story, the music and the personal, rather than just giving us this kind of glossed over glimpse. Like, it painted her picture, told her story in such broad strokes, I guess is what I'm getting at. Um, but yeah, I don't know. And then her husband, the first one, Ted, she actually met him when she was a child, like at one of her dad's Saturday night parties. He initially was dating Dinah Washington, and so it's like he was that much older than her. And I'm not saying that they actually got together before she was of legal age, but so you went from, and then I want to say, gosh, again, I might be confusing the two, but in one of them, her sisters alludes to that her husband was actually just in it. I think it was this, where her husband was just like her dad, when they were saying that you and him fight like mama and daddy fight,
Yeah, it
and
was the movie.
when they were trying to convince her to leave him. And it was just like, oh my gosh, So, um, but yeah. And then, so what did you think about that Time magazine article?
When it came out that her husband beat her in the lobby.
Yeah.
I mean, facts. Like everybody saw, and then you get the little bit of a flashback of exactly how it went down. Um, and then she finally stood up for herself. And she was like, "How you gonna prove that it didn't happen? Everybody saw you."
Yeah.
That's when
Um,
she finally grew some
Cojones.
cojones. Yes, and said like, "You gonna go?" But when I thought it was gonna be like last time until she started packing up his shit, and I said, "Oh, she dead serious now. Like she really throwing out the trash." Okay, all right,
Yeah, because
cool.
he, like, you get it. He was kind of like, in the movie, again, it goes towards, this kind of makes me want to actually go back and read her memoir, like, because it's just so
Is it
much.
gonna be more honest than the movie? Because the movie was PG-13.
Yeah, I think so, because her memoir was actually written by her and a co-writer, co-author, so it's her story in her words. um but because, like, Ted. So when they meet, you see what happens, but from the very beginning, from that scene after their first night together, you kind of get that she was into him more than he was into her. Like, at that point, I got the demeanor, like his attitude kind of changed. Like, he got what he wanted when they were talking about her records. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know what
Mm-hmm.
scene I'm talking. And
Yeah.
so I was like, damn, did he is he really that dude who, now that he got what he wanted, he's just going to jump on the gravy train? And and to an extent, he he was a I don't know, he helped her break away from her father, but then he became another. I don't
The
know how to
only
say
reason she was able to break away from her father is because she got a replacement, and that was
it.
Ted.
And that was Ted. Thank you. Exactly. So he became like a replacement. And forgive me for lack of a better term, but he became this other noose around her neck. And like I said, forgive me for lack of a better term for that. But um, yeah. And so when they went down, now those white boys in Shoals, Alabama, those mugs could jam. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they had it going on. And he and I guess that's the first time where we get the glimpse of that he was jealous, and he also did a lot to sabotage her. Like, if, like you said about her father, if he wasn't getting the credit for it, then he didn't want her to become like too big or too popular. And I guess we saw that when they were talking about sending her on the European tour. And he's like, no, no, she can't go to Europe because she has to do TV, or she can't do this, or if she does this, she has to do it with my band, and so, but that
That's another
scene,
thing of him controlling her career and her letting him, just so she don't have to deal with, his hurt feelings, which goes along with the abusive relationship that they had. Not just physical, because a lot of times we focus on the physical, but you had that emotional abuse where the decision that she made was based on his emotions to make sure that they didn't get to the part where he would get physical with her.
yeah, and then when he comes back, like the one time when she comes back and he's like, well, you got to help me deal with my demons the way I help you deal with yours. And so I was just like, yeah, it was bad. And um, the scene where him and the guy, they get into the fight in the hotel room in Alabama because the trumpet player, whoever, was just talking to her, just joking around with her, and it's just like, really, y'all gonna fight about that? Like, you're jealous over that? So
It was because ultimately the fight wasn't about the trumpet player.
no,
It
it
was about the
wasn't.
fact that he was uncomfortable with, first of all, being in Alabama. Um, he was uncomfortable with the fact that they proved him wrong on the type of music they could play and what they could present, and as well as the fact that she complimented them on surprising her on the music that they could play and the fact that they could keep up with the style of music that she wanted to do. That's what I think ultimately like threw him off of the whole entire thing, where he went at it with the dude. I forgot what his name was. He went at it with the producer because of that, because he just could not believe that somebody else was going to come in, and if they give her too many compliments, what would she need him for?
Yeah. And I guess, but Wexler had told him, and I forgot whose backing musicians they were, Ray Charles, Wilson Pickett's. But they were the studio musicians for some other big band or some other big act back then. And so, and then, yeah, because when they got there, he's like, I told you that. And she's like, but how the hell was I supposed to know they were white? And so, and I was just like, yeah. And then, he the guy, the fight at the hotel was just ridiculous, and I was just like, wow. But I yeah, he was just ridiculous, and they stayed married for about 9 years. um and then she went on to the tour manager, who she never married. She was only married twice, and her second husband, which they didn't talk about, or and this was Glenn Turman. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
The actor. He played, oh gosh, have you ever seen Cooley High?
Nope.
Nope. Oh, Glenn Turman. If I showed you a picture, you would know who he was. You've seen him in um, you've seen him in other stuff. I just can't think of anything that he's been in off the top of my head. But that was her second husband, and I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, they were married for about not 6, 7 years. I forgot why they ended up getting divorced, but I want to say that she
Wasn't
was.
he in Mama Rainey? Ma Rainey?
Yeah, he was. He played.
He was the one who got stabbed in the back.
Yeah, he was the one with the shoes. He was the one who was talking about the shoes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I know he
yeah.
is.
I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, she said that that was the love of her life or something, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah. So, but that was her second husband. Um, what did you think about her family dynamic? Just like her relationship with the rest of her family, her brother, her father, her sisters.
She was disrespectful to her siblings. Um, she had talent and she threw it in their face that she was the one with the most talent. I hated that. And then, they just kind of went back to the folk. Well, that's the demon in her, so we got to forgive her. We got to, and I'm just talking about the movie. I don't know how it was in real life or anything like that, but just in the movie, she was very, very selfish towards her siblings. She was a bitch to her siblings when she got the liquor in her, and I guess that's the excuse for her treating her sisters the way that she did. um Even though, like, they stuck by her, they dropped their whole lives to go on tour with her, and all of that. But and then her grandmother raised her kids. She didn't raise her own kids, none of them. So I am not a fan of her family dynamic.
Yeah. And it goes back to and that's why I say I have to read I kind of want to read her memoir just to see what was really true, because in not to compare the two because we're not really talking about, but in the mini series of Cynthia Erivo, when she got pregnant, they basically said her grandmother took it upon herself and said, "Hey, we this is the family baby," like they weren't upset with her. Her grandmother was actually upset with her father because she told her father, "Don't take her on the road, she's too young for this, for that life." And that he was supposed to watch her. Well, like we said, Papa was a Rolling Stone on his own. He was drinking and partying on Fridays, but on Saturdays, but made sure he was in church preaching up a storm on Sundays, to forgive him of all his stuff. But yeah, so she, especially with her being so young, and that was something that they alluded to, is that not many people knew, especially when she first started out, that at 22, 23 years old, that she'd already had children, one of them reaching the double digits in age. So it kind of became something that was just kind of talked about a little bit later. But yeah, so yeah, it was just, I don't know. I Well, did you enjoy the story overall?
I love the movie. I said that in the very beginning. The movie was good. The acting was phenomenal. But I'm going to acknowledge the fact that um she had some shitty instances. It comes from her childhood, of course, and the trauma of her childhood. But you can be the queen of soul and still be a bitch. So
Yeah, now, and she did have a reputation for not suffering any fools, for being a diva. Um, for she was known to make you wait. She was one of those latecomers. But hey, she was the queen of soul. You were going to be on her time. For some shows, that she was very, and you saw it in some instances when she was directing the musicians and saying, "No, no, let's do this." She was a perfectionist when it came to her sound and her music. But she was a musical genius. She was also another one of those where she didn't have any formal training. She learned from her mom and learned singing from ear. So you can't take that, her talent or anything, away from her. But, I personally, like you say, you can be the queen of soul and still be a very flawed human being, very flawed individual. And I loved it. I loved the scene at the end where it showed her performing for the Obamas. I think I want to say, I don't know if it was one of the Kennedy Center honors or something.
yeah, it's
When
when
she,
it's when
when
she
she,
received.
yeah, when she sang Natural Woman and she had
Yeah.
on that fur coat. And one of the things I wish they would have talked about, and they really didn't talk about it, I wish they would have talked about how she got the name, the Queen of Soul. She didn't give it to herself. This people in Chicago kind of just gave it to her when she was taking over the Soul Church. So I wish it would have talked about more of those highlights in her career. Why she always at one point took her purse on stage with her. You kind of got a glimpse of it when she was playing the piano at the very end. Her purse was on the stage, and that's why. And she had this saying where she's like, she always got paid before she sung, so she always had her purse with her. Just little quirky things like that. So I kind of wish it would have done a better job of blending in. And I keep going back to this, some of the good stuff with some of the bad stuff, because it was like you got the music and you got the tragedy, but you never really got to see her when she was just like, happy, or spending time with her children, because she loved her children and they were with her grandmother, but you never got to just see her like kind of be a mom or any of that kind of stuff. So, is there anything you wish you could have seen more of or less of, or?
I just think the story was disjointed.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I wrote down. It was really really a disjointed story. I did have to focus a little bit to make sure I knew like what era we were in, like what decade we were in, and everything like that. Just to follow the story a little bit. But once again, I will say, great movie. Recommend everybody goes to see it. Really, really enjoyed it. Phenomenal, phenomenal acting. Um, just a more honest view. Like I heard somebody say on a podcast that I listen to, that can you really trust a biopic that's PG-13? Because if you get to the point that you can do a biopic, then that should be a rated R, because you got to fully tell the truth of it. But at the same time, like there were just things that were left out that I think I'm sure like there was an agreement to not like focus on it, but just would have given a more honest depiction of what she had to deal with, as well as her life journey.
You said it perfectly. And I think that's the word I was looking for, but I just had a brain freeze and it was not coming to me. Disjointed describes it so perfectly. And you summed it up. Um, yeah. I wish there was more of an honest depiction. And, people are saying that Black people, especially when you're doing a biopic about someone in the music industry, I don't care who they are. If you're in the music industry, you've dealt with some shit, especially Black musicians coming up during that time, just from in the 60s, what she dealt with. um, one of the songs that I love by Dusty Springfield, "Son of a Preacher Man." I don't I knew it. I knew Aretha Franklin did it, but I didn't know it was her song originally. That she did. She originally didn't want to sing the song because she didn't want to be disrespectful towards her father, because he was a preacher. And so I'm with you. I wish it would have been a little bit more honest, not so disjointed. And like I said, everything in her life wasn't trauma. I know that it started off traumatic. I know she had to, quote unquote, a lot of demons to deal with, just because of the things that happened in her childhood. And I'm sure a lot of the family dynamics and all that other stuff. But like you said, if it would have focused on maybe one era and just kind of told that story through there, then I think it would have been better served. But I agree with you on that. Do you think it should be nominated for any awards? I'm thinking. What do you think? Do you think this is going to be
Yeah,
on the awards?
yeah. Marlon Wayans and Jennifer Hudson, definitely, definitely, they need to get some recognition for the role that they played in the movie.
I agree. I agree with you. I think those two definitely. Maybe Forrest Whitaker, but if I had to choose between Forrest Whitaker and Marlon Wayans, I would definitely put Marlon Wayans up. Um, the picture itself, the story itself, the movie itself, probably not, but the performances definitely. Um, so, were you a fan of Aretha Franklin's music before now, or just casual fan, or were you truly a fan?
I was a fan of her music. I wouldn't say I was a fan of Aretha Franklin, because I didn't know anything about her life. But I was a fan of her music. Like, I know her songs. Like, I could sing it as they were playing. I was just like, oh yeah. So I was a fan of her music, but to be a fan of Aretha Franklin, I will say no.
Yeah. Um, I like I said, I'm with you. I was more of a casual fan. I loved her music. Love her music. So and I was looking back. I'm like, have I spotlighted her? Did was she on? And I was like, ooh. So when the wind down, when the popcorn wind down gets rolling on off cylinders again, I'm gonna have to add her to the music, because when setting all this up, I was like, oh, it's so much. And I can't remember if she's been spotlighted or not. So I have to go back and check that. If not, she's definitely coming. Um, but I I wasn't, like I said, I knew some things about her life, but I'd never done a deep dive. Like I'd never read any of her biographies. I kind of knew on the surface that she was an activist, but this has definitely gotten me interested. And I do, the nerd in me's coming out for the umpteenth time. I think I am just going to go and read a biography or her memoir with her words, because I kind of want to know more of the true
You're a
story.
reader.
I am a reader, and I'm a nerd. I'm a geek out on it. I'll fill you in. Look, I'll give you the cliff notes. I'll be like, this was true. This was true. This wasn't true. They should have put this in. They should have, But I'm sure with you, I don't know if it was part of the deal that they made with her, because this was in the works before she passed away, and it's been like 3 years since she passed away. I was like, oh wow. But this was in the works before she passed away. She handpicked Jennifer Hudson, so I don't know if it was that she just wanted them to tell a certain version of her life, and that it was agreed upon that it would be a PG-13 film. I don't know.
I think
And
she just
like,
didn't want to show certain things. So
yeah, and it's absolutely her right, her story. She has the right to do that, because even though, like I said, I watched The Genius, and it's good. If you get bored and you want something to watch, you have time on our ever busy schedule. Then I highly recommend you watch the Genius version too. But it is equally disjointed in the story that it tells, and it's not much different. It just goes into a few more details, but it's not anything more salacious or scandalous, or I would say it's probably would be a PG-13 as well. So, okay, before we wrap up, what's your favorite Aretha Franklin song? Do you have one off the top of your head? Can you think of one? I take that silence as a no, or you're thinking, like, are the wheels turning? Am
I
I
can't
getting
think of
cussed
one.
out for asking the question?
I can't think of one. What's yours?
um, I love Never Loved a Man the Way That I Love You, Chain of Fools. But there's one that just takes me, uh, gosh. And every time I make a playlist, like when I make that sad music, Ain't No Way. Yes. Ain't No Way is probably my favorite. Um, as I say, every time I make that sad music playlist, that heartbreak playlist, I put Ain't No Way on there, because that's probably one of my all time favorites. And I love the Amazing Grace album. I never watched the documentary, but it's a great gospel album. So whenever you're in a mood for some just old time, take you to church gospel music, I highly recommend that one too. All right. So what I think we covered it all. Anything that we missed? Any other questions?
No, let's
Anything
get to the
you want to
rating.
add? All right. So what do you want to rate this? What is your rating for this?
I'm gonna rate it a 3.5 popcorns. The acting was phenomenal, but the story was disjointed. It threw me off sometimes, even with the amazing acting. So 3.5, and I do recommend going and seeing Respect. I think it's a really, really good movie that I would recommend to anyone to see if you want to see great acting and a great story. But yeah, I can't go higher than 3.5.
Wow, I think this might be the first time in history you rated something higher than I did. I went with a three, and it was just, and I agree with you. The acting was phenomenal. It's a cool story. It's a nice story. Um, but for what I said, it was just too disjointed for me to really just, and um, I that threw me off. Just the way in which they chose to tell the story, I guess. So I give it a three, but I would recommend it. Check it out in the movies. If you want to have a good stay at home and chill night, it's on video on demand. So that might be a little cheaper for you to rent it at home for that $20 than going to the movies. I don't know, but I highly recommend you watch it. Jennifer Hudson and Marlon Wayans are worth the price of admission, no matter what you choose to do. And Forrest Whitaker's just Forrest Whitaker. Even Mary J. Blige has a cameo in it as Dinah Washington. So, hey, check it out, definitely. So, that does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down RESPC. Oh, my bad. I know. You knew it was coming. I didn't sing. Well, I didn't really sing, so you knew I had to get it in there. I had to warm up the vocal cords. But please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and or Spotify Podcasts. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at thepopcornwinedown.com. We will be back up and running with all of our great stuff after the Labor Day holiday. The break will officially be over. But that's it. That's the plug. Pop, 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 pop. One day, I'm going to get that sound effect. But until then, we'd like to thank you as always. And be sure to join us next week when we play Kissing Games, when we talk about part 3 in the finale of the Kissing Booth series. Are you excited about that?
Not at all, but I'm going to watch it.
Wow.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not.
You know, a song just came into my head. High five. I like the way. Let me stop. I'll save it for next week. Next week. That's going to be it. Every week, I'm going to think of a theme song that may not have anything to do with the soundtrack. So next week, it's going to be Kissing Game. Yeah. You going to join me? I'm going to send you the words to the song so we can sing it together.
Until next time, y'all. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.